It was an ordinary Tuesday morning when Melissa dropped her 10-year-old daughter, Lily, off at school just like she had done every day for years. Lily smiled, waved goodbye, and walked through the school gates. But that was the last time Melissa saw her. Hours later, the school called to say Lily hadn't shown up to class. Panic set in. Security footage showed her entering the building, but there was no trace of her leaving. No leads, no witnesses, just silence. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into years. The police did everything they could, but the case went cold. Melissa never gave up. She searched parks, malls, bus stations, anywhere a child might go. She joined online forums, printed flyers, and spent sleepless nights combing through anything that might help. Then, 2 years later, during one of her late-night searches, Melissa opened Google Maps just on a whim. She zoomed in on a neighborhood. Halfway across the country, it was a place she had no connection to, but something drew her in. As she clicked around the screen, her eyes landed on something that made her heart stop. It was a blurry image, but one she couldn't ignore. Her hands shook. Could it really be her? Could it be Lily? What Melissa did next would unravel a story no one could have seen coming. A discovery born from heartbreak, persistence, and a mother's unshakable hope. But what exactly did she see on that screen? And how could a simple map lead to the truth? Melissa couldn't sleep that night. She kept going back to the same spot. On Google Maps, zooming in and out, taking screenshots, comparing them with old photos of Lily. The image was grainy, taken from a street view camera, but the girl standing in front of a small corner store looked eerily familiar. Same brown hair, same posture. Even the way she held her backpack was just like Lily used to. Melissa stared at the screen for hours, heart racing, torn between hope and fear. She knew it might be nothing, just another false lead. But something about this felt different. She started digging into the area, an unfamiliar neighborhood in a small town 3 states away. It wasn't a place they'd ever visited. No family or friends lived there. So how could Lily have ended up in a place so far from home? Melissa reached out to local authorities, but without solid proof, there wasn't much they could do. She tried calling the corner store, leaving messages, even emailing anyone she could find nearby. No one responded. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was onto something. In the weeks that followed, Melissa became obsessed. She printed out maps, tracked deliveries to the store, and even watched YouTube videos filmed in the area, scanning the background for any sign of the girl. Every blurry figure, every glimpse of a backpack sent her pulse skyrocketing. Could Lily really be living in plain sight all this time? Unnoticed, unreachable. And if so, why? Melissa finally decided she had to see the place with her own eyes. She packed a small bag, left a note for her sister to watch the house, and drove over 600 miles to that small, unfamiliar town. Her heart pounded the entire drive. What if it was just a coincidence? What if the girl on Google Maps wasn't Lily at all? But what if it was? That question kept her going. When she arrived, the neighborhood looked just like it did on the screen, quiet. Almost too quiet. The corner store stood at the end of a narrow street, its faded sign barely hanging on. Melissa parked a few blocks away and waited. She didn't know exactly what she was waiting for. Just a feeling, a sign, anything. Hours passed. People came and went, but none of them looked like the girl in the photo. Melissa returned the next day and the next. On the 3rd day, she spotted a teenager coming out of the store. Her hair was shorter now, and she looked older, but something about her face made Melissa's breath catch. She followed at a distance, trying not to panic. The girl walked quickly, glancing over her shoulder once or twice before disappearing into a narrow alley behind a row of apartments. Melissa didn't follow right away. Something felt off. Why would a teenage girl look so guarded in her own neighborhood? And why did she vanish into a place with no visible entrance? Something deeper was going on, something Melissa wasn't ready for. Melissa's hands trembled as she stood at the edge of the alley. It was narrow, dimly lit, and dead silent. Her instincts screamed at her to turn back, but her heart wouldn't let her move. She had come too far. Slowly, she stepped forward, her footsteps soft against the cracked pavement. The alley twisted. Around a corner, and as she peeked past the edge, she saw a rusted metal door tucked behind overgrown ivy. It didn't look like a back entrance to an apartment, it looked more like a place no one was supposed to see. She reached out and touched the door. Locked. That night, she checked into a nearby motel, but couldn't sleep. Her thoughts raced. With possibilities. What if the girl was Lily, and she was being kept there? What if someone was controlling her, watching her every move? Melissa thought about the reports she'd read over the years about missing children being taken in by people who kept them hidden, sometimes even convincing them their families were gone. Gosh, it was a horrifying thought, but one she couldn't ignore anymore. The next morning, Melissa returned to the alley. This time, she brought a photo of Lily as a child, hoping someone nearby might recognize her. But when she tried to ask questions, most people shut their doors or simply said they hadn't seen anything. One older man paused for a moment, then whispered, "You're not the first one to ask about her." Before she could respond, he turned and walked away. Melissa stood frozen, heart pounding. Replaying the old man's words in her head, "You're not the first one to ask about her." It sent a chill down her spine. Who else had come looking? And why had no one said anything before? That night, back at the motel, she went back online, searching through missing persons forums and cold case groups. Buried deep in a discussion thread from over a year ago, she found a comment that stopped her cold. It mentioned a girl matching Lily's description seen near the same corner store, wearing the same type of backpack. The user never followed up, and their account was no longer active. Melissa dug deeper and discovered that 2 other children had gone missing from nearby towns in recent years, both girls around Lily's age. Their cases had gone cold too, and, strangely, both families had reported spotting their daughters in random places months later, only to find no trace. It felt like a pattern, but no one had connected the dots. The next morning, Melissa returned to the alley and waited again. Hours passed. Just as she was about to leave, a black van pulled up near the back entrance. A man stepped out, looked around carefully, then opened the rusted door and disappeared inside. Moments later, the same girl from before stepped out, but this time, she wasn't alone. A second girl followed her, younger, with the same distant look in her eyes. Melissa's breath caught. Something bigger was happening here, something far darker than she ever imagined. Melissa couldn't wait any longer. She stepped out from where she was hiding and called out, her voice cracking, "Lily." The girls froze. The older one turned. Slowly, eyes wide, her face pale. For a second, there was silence, just the sound of the wind and distant traffic. Then, in a trembling voice, she whispered, "Mom." Time stopped. Melissa ran to her, tears streaming, arms outstretched. Lily hesitated just for a heartbeat, then broke into a run, crashing into her mother's arms. The man from the van burst out the door, yelling, but by then, Melissa was already dialing 911 with shaking hands. He froze, realizing he'd been seen. Within minutes, sirens echoed through the streets. Police stormed the building behind the alley, uncovering a hidden network of rooms where the 2 girls and possibly others before them had been kept. It turned out the man was part of a small group involved in moving missing children from place to place, staying off the grid. Lily had been told her family was gone. She'd been moved so often she started to believe it as officers took statements. Melissa held Lily tightly, refusing to let go. But just when it seemed like the nightmare was over, a detective approached. "We found something inside," he said, handing Melissa an old, worn notebook. Inside were names, dates, and a photo of Melissa. It was recent. Someone had been watching her too. The nightmare wasn't just about finding Lily, it was about what had been watching them all along. Back home weeks later, Melissa and Lily were slowly learning how to be a family again. The days weren't easy. There were nightmares, long talks, and moments of silence where neither knew what to say. But they were together, and that was enough for now. Lily started therapy, returned to school part-time, and began drawing again, something she hadn't done since before she disappeared. Melissa kept the worn notebook in a drawer, a reminder of how close she had come to losing everything, and how far they'd come to find the truth. The police eventually uncovered the full scope of the group behind Lily's disappearance. Several arrests were made across multiple states. The girls found in that alley apartment were reunited with their families, and the neighborhood that once kept silent slowly began to open up. The man who handed Melissa the notebook had vanished before he could be identified, but the investigation remained open. For Melissa, it was no longer about fear, it was about awareness. She began speaking at schools, helping other families understand the importance of persistence and paying attention to the smallest details. Her story: a mother who found her missing daughter through a blurry image on Google Maps spread online, bringing